So what about doors in Zombicide Invader? If you've been exploring the Zombicide franchise, you've got Modern, you've got the Green Horde, you've got Black Plague on there, you've got a couple of seasons of Modern. These concepts of doors have been, even with Massive Darkness, long distant cousin on there, doors are important because they reveal spawned areas. What we see in Zombicide Black Plague, you have a door, you break down the door, and zombies spawn in there. Once you clean them out, they're okay. They're done. You can keep doors closed to keep zombies from entering a certain area on there. So you can choose not to break down doors because you know they're going to pour in for an area. And they take actions. One of the biggest frustrations in Black Plague, not as much in Modern because the weapons tend to be a little bit more damaging, but expending actions to break down a door and you just fail on there. I mean, I get it. It's part of the game. It fits the narrative perfectly. There's some big wooden and iron door, and I've got an axe. It's going to take a little bit to cleave through that. Invader has changed all that. Invader has changed the tactica of the doors. And it not only has updated it, but it's opened it up with a completely different and very, very interesting rule. So one of the things you first notice, no spoilers here, you look through the rules and you start looking at some of the missions and it tells you how doors operate. It mentions doors in the rules. This took me a couple of read-throughs. And you're looking at the map and you're like, where do I place the doors? Where do the doors activate on there? And looking through that, you kind of expect it from playing other versions of Zombicide. The difference now is that you can move through each section of the complex, each room, and the airlock pretty much without restriction and for free on there. So maybe the doors, like Star Trek, just automatically open and close, or they seal, you move through the airlock. Instead of expending action points to break down doors, now you spend action points to lock doors. And when the Xenos move up to those doors, they kind of pause and they expend actions to break down the doors. So it's switched. Now you have the Xenos, the zombies, breaking down doors, and essentially the survivors, the actors of the game, erecting these doors. It costs you an action point to do that. So there's this idea of tactically opening up, not so much in the beginning of the game. I mean, you can get some pretty brutal spawns early on. That's just Zombicide. You deal with it. But somewhere around mid-game, things start to really kind of put pressure on you because the spawn zones have been pumping stuff out. You've got mold pumping stuff out. Miniatures are everywhere. You've got mixed groups activating, which is always hard. You know, if you have some workers in there along with some hunters, that's a mixed group. And you have to kind of calculate and look, okay, the hunters will activate, move, or move and attack. The workers will at least move in and pile in, but then that locks me in for next turn on there. But then 2 spaces down, there's another group of hunters, so that means next turn they'll be on top of me. Kind of a lot of what-if calculations. And based on those calculations, you look at your dice, you look at your weapons, you roll the fistful of dice, and you hopefully can reduce those numbers on there. Well, now at the mid-game, even with better weapons, there comes a time for the mission goals where you really can't kill enough Zombicide stuff, especially with Focus Fire, which is absolutely an amazing rule and an enhancement on there. But to burn all my dice to potentially take down one target, which I need to do, usually in a spoiler abomination or one of the other abominations, that means I'm not thinning the literal horde, the rest of the zombies on there. So being able to move and activate these doors and lock them and essentially throw up barriers as I move through the complex, it can potentially slow down the Xenos horde. Where you get into a little bit of trouble, potential trouble, and there's nothing you can do about it, can't even really plan for it, is, unless you're counting cards on there literally, activations in the mold or activations through searching where the zombies get Xenos get an extra activation in there. That'll allow them to potentially chew through the doors quicker, depending on the setup. But, when that happens, what can you really do on there? So a new tactic, I don't find myself doing it as much as one would think. I don't find myself doing it as much as I would like, simply because even as I level up and get more action points, I just need to spend it on shooting, or I need to spend it on bot or turret activations or other pieces of gear. But I try to keep an open option. So if I can throw up that door and lock it and seal it, then we'll do it. Or sometimes if it's risky where, look, I can try to shoot, I can expend my dice, I can activate, use my weapon to shoot. This is usually, see this where you're lower in life. I can shoot, and even if I have better than average attack, if I've got a weapon that can throw out 4 or 5 dice on there, better than average, the average of 2 dice, I still could miss. And if I don't have any type of ways like ammo or abilities to manipulate those rerolls, if I miss, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. So do I want to risk the miss, the potential for miss, even if it's small, even if the math hammer, the theory hammer says I'm going to get it? This is Fritz rolling the dice. I either roll awful or total legendary on there, very rarely in between. Then sometimes it's better to go with what's guaranteed in the game, to try and control that random. Lock the door behind you, seal it, get out that cutter, buzz it, and keep moving on from there.